To prevent a nationwide strike by university lecturers and non-teaching staff have failed, setting the stage for industrial action starting at midnight that could disrupt university operations. The strike, called jointly by the University Academic Staff Union, that's UASU, and the Kenya University Staff Union, KUSU, adds to the challenges facing the higher education sector. Now, this development follows the recent cancellation of a student strike just a week ago, which had been resolved through government intervention. The students had been protesting the current higher education funding model. Now, UASU and KUSU issued their strike notice on Wednesday, the 11th of September. And although Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba invited the unions to a meeting on Monday, the talks ended in a deadlock. And to better understand the situation from the union's perspective, we have Onesmus Mutio, the organizing secretary of UASU, here with me. Thank you for joining us tonight. And the strike notice that you had issued lapses at midnight. So this means no learning operations will be happening from tomorrow in public universities?
Thank you for this interview. Let me say that the 7-day strike notice that we issued to our employer expires today midnight. And therefore tomorrow, or beginning from tomorrow, we'll be launching our national strike in all the 38 public universities. And there will be no academic activity that will be taking place in all our public universities until our demands are met by the government.
All right. So the bone of contention is the issue of the CBA. Yeah. Just talk to us about some of the key contentious issues that, we've not been able to come to an agreement on between yourselves and the government on that particular CBA.
Just to begin with, the national CBA that is bringing the issue is the 2021-2025 national CBA, which means that we ought to have negotiated this CBA way back before 2021. We gave our proposal to our employer in 2020. We expected to negotiate because it was to be implemented in 1st July 2021. That did not take place. Our employer only invited us for talks last year, and from last year we've been taken route from one university to another for negotiations, and the negotiations has collapsed because we failed to agree, and therefore we have to resort to strikes. Just before I come to the issues, I want to bring to your attention that university workers are always neglected. They are discriminated among the government workers. There's no single CBA that university workers have ever enjoyed without going on strike. In fact, from the history, as in the universities, we will go on about 3, if not 4 strikes before a CBA is implemented. First, we will go on a strike to force our employer to come to the negotiation table. When that happens, we must go on another strike to force the employer to sign that CBA. Before it is implemented, we go for a strike. So this is just a first strike. We expect some more strike before the CBA issue is resolved. But coming to the issues that you raised, the main reason why we are going on strike beginning from tomorrow is that the employers refuse to negotiate our national CBA. Part of this is the basic salary increase. You are well aware that all the other government workers, they got a salary increase from between 7 to 10%, but that did not take place in the universities. We did not get that. And therefore, we have told the employer that to the reducible minimum, give us what every other public worker got. Every other public sector workers got between 7 to 10%. And we are also employees of the same government. We pay taxes, so why should we be discriminated? So that we have not agreed, and we are not going to teach until that is resolved. The last time our house allowance in the universities was reviewed is in 2008. You'll agree with me, from 2008 up to now, the housing rates have really increased. The government itself has also increased the rent in their whole houses by 10%. Yet they don't want to increase, in our sector. Other issues are like...
Let me just hold on to that in terms of the issue of the basic salary. Comparatively in Africa, how do we as a country rank in terms of the payment, especially to lecturers and other academic staff, university staff as well?
Well, as lecturers, we have done that research, and I can assure you that Kenyans are among the poorest paid in academic staff. We are the poorest paid, and you know that we have been losing most of our colleagues to other countries. If we compare ourselves with even other countries like South Africa, Tanzania, they get better rates than we are. If we compare ourselves with other countries in Africa, we are among the worst.
Mm-hmm. So then we move on to the other issues, and I think one of the other issues that you had raised within the CBA was the delayed pay to select universities as well, the issues of salary delays and deductions to third parties as well. Yes. Maybe expound more on that.
Yeah, as I was saying, thank you for that question. As I was saying is that as the lecturers in public universities or general workers, because we also bring in the non-teaching staff, we are actually the most discriminated, and I can assure you that workers in public universities are really suffering. They are losing their property to the banks because the bank loans that they took, when the management deducts the bank loans, they don't remit to the banks, and therefore who are left to suffer? Our members. So our pension schemes have collapsed in almost all the universities, because the government does not, or our employer do not pay the pension component to those pension schemes. It is also the same to all the other deductions, the circle loans and all that. So they deduct these third-party deduction, but they do not remit. And therefore, our members have been listed in CRB. Others have had their property being auctioned because the employer cannot remit those deductions when they deduct from our salaries. Now, the other thing is the issue of delayed salaries that has really affected our sector. Most of the universities get their salary from 15th, 20th, unlike other public sectors who earn their salary way before the end of the month. And therefore, this has become a common practice. Now, worse to that is that most of the universities, the worst case scenario, are not even able to pay the 100% salary. We have got cases where workers have been paid 57% of their net salary for over 3 years. That's not a very good scenario, knowing how hard the economic times that we are living. So most of the universities have been paid their salaries late. We have been, as a union, this has been a concern for us. It's one of the issues that we want is resolved. We want the government to be releasing that capitation early enough so that our members can also get their salary early enough like any other workers.
All right. And before the lapse of that strike notice, of course, yesterday the Education Cabinet Secretary had called for a meeting together with the unions, but it appears there was no consensus in that meeting. What was the point of departure there?
Well, it's true we held a consultative meeting with the CES Minister of Education and the PS yesterday in Jogo House. Well, what came out is that the government requested for more time that they could address our issues. But we felt that our employer has been buying time since last year. They had all the time to resolve our issues. And therefore, we thought that, well, our members could not wait longer. We could not suspend the strike as members before we, as the officials, before we given that mandate by our members. And our members said no, until our CBA is negotiated and signed, we are not going back to class. And therefore, we have resolved that come tomorrow, there will be no academic activity taking place in any public university.
How many lecturers are going to be affected, and how many staff are going to be part of this strike?
Well, we are about 11,000 university lecturers in 35 public universities, and all of us will be down in our tools. Yes.
So that's what it looks like. But looking at another issue that I think it was part of the proposals from the union was you want the retirement age for academic staff to be raised to 75. Right, 75 years, with voluntary retirement options starting at 50. What's the justification here?
Well, we don't want it raised. What we wanted is an harmonized retirement age. But there is a circular from the government that requires that in the public sector, all workers will retire at 60, but there's an exception of the academic staff and the judges, who should retire between 65 to 74. And therefore, what we wanted is an harmonized retirement age. When you come to the public university, unlike other sectors, there's no uniform retirement age, although the government circulates that it should range between 65 to 74. In some universities, the retirement age is 65. In other universities, the retirement age is 70. In another university, the retirement age is 74. You go to another university, 75. Another university, 79. Now, what you're saying is that this is not the case. If you go to, for example, in the public sector, we know that the retirement age for everyone is 60 years, regardless of your grade or whatever you're doing. So what we are saying as a union is that because we are all workers in the same sector, same qualification, same employer, same union, we should have a uniform retirement age. And we're saying that let this be 74 years. Our employer offered it as 70. We still feel, well, it should be at 74. But we said, well, at least we should have an harmonized retirement age so that a professor does not move from retire at 65 in another university and move to another university where you retire at 70, then move to another university where you retire at 74, then move to another university where you retire at 79. So what we want, it's not that we want it raised to 74, we want it harmonized to 74 in all public universities.
All right. Just one more issue here before we wind up. It's on the issue of the higher education funding model. We know that the president has formed a committee comprising of more than 100 members. And there is a point of departure between the vice chancellors of universities and unions in terms of that particular issue. The vice chancellors are actually in support of this new funding model, but unions are not in support. Where's the disconnect?
From the union side, we feel that the vice chancellors are not being honest with the government. They are not telling the government the truth. We feel maybe they only want to please some people in the government, and they are not honest. From our side, we feel that there are challenges, a lot of challenges with this model that need to be addressed. You have said it correctly that a committee was formed with of above 100 people. Some of our members are already part of that committee, and I'm sure when that right time comes, they will move in to give our views. But key to this model is where we feel that our salary as professors or lecturers in public university will be paid by the students. So we feel it is very wrong that as a lecturer, I'll be paid by the students when they come to pay fees. So what happens when students don't pay fees? Do we tell the police to get their salary from the criminals, the fine that the criminals they arrest pay? Do the doctors get their salary from the patients they treat? In the schools, students also pay fees, but teachers are not paid from those fees. So we wonder, why should the government put it that the lecturers will be paid by the fees from the students? And we feel that's discriminatory. Our view is that because we are government employees, we should be paid by the government and not by the students.
All right. So wouldn't it be a little bit too premature to not be in support while this whole thing is being handled by that committee? So perhaps we wait and see?
One of the other things we feel is that, of course, it is still in order for us to poke holes where we feel that there should be challenges, and this will be the best time to address that. Another thing, we also feel that if every university will depend on the number of the students that are there, then some universities that might be disadvantaged in terms of their geographical location, for example, or in terms of other factors. What happens if they don't get students, because students may not choose to go there? Then they may not have money to run, and therefore those universities might end up being closed.
All right. Thank you. Onesmus Mutio, Organizing Secretary, University Academic Staff Union. Thank you for joining us tonight. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more.